Well, are you ready for some unindoctrination? I hope so, because ready or not, here it comes. I see Billy trying to connect. He's noticed or said he was having some technical issues, but I think he's there. We'll bring him in just a minute. Let me go ahead and introduce him first. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, coming to you straight out of the heartland. And we're coming, obviously, and I know some people have a problem with this, and in time, we'll take it down. But right now, we're still coming in the spirit of 1776 and with a rebel yell. Whether tyrants are 4,000 miles away, 400 miles away, or 4 miles away, we've had enough. We're drawing a line in the sand. The same blood that ran through these patriots' veins runs through ours. And we've simply had enough. And if I was it Pat Benatar? I don't know if it was Pat Benatar, but if I had a better voice, I would sing, "We're not going to take it anymore," but I'll spare you with that. Billy Zig is the author of a very interesting book that I actually read. I think he was kind enough to send it to me free of charge, and it's called The Elusive Curve. I'm looking at his web. I want to look at the website and show you that, elusivecurve.com, and this is where you can get the book. It's a very interesting book. It's written in a very different type of way, and I want to talk with Billy about that, and I want to talk about the whole idea. But this is the website. Let's get rid of that, unless you can join the nice mailing list. But this is his website. It's elusivecurve.com. Billy is the author of the book, and we're having a little bit of slowness on the internet connection, but it's a novel, which is very, very interesting. And he is helping people to break through that desire and break through that very strong paradigm about our earth. He's got some cool shades. He's from Melbourne, Australia. He's worked in the field of IT since 2000, founded several businesses. That says a lot, ladies and gentlemen, about the entrepreneurial and investigatory mindset of Billy Zig. Voice recognition, search engine optimization. And boy, let me tell you what, folks, that is far from simple. He spent thousands of hours researching conspiracy theories as a hobby. Many of them tuned into conspiracy fact. We've all been there. Latest topic, the shape of the earth. I like the way he puts that. While involved thousands of hours of rigorous research and debate, after initially attempting to debunk the preposterous flat earth theory. That's a continuing theme as I move into this realm. And I don't know that I've heard anyone that hasn't been in that place. The book was spawned. He took pen to paper, wrote the book. Get a copy if you like an adventure that's strategically hidden amongst truth. You won't be disappointed, and I'm confident that you won't be disappointed. And I hadn't heard Billy's voice, and I heard his voice, and I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool accent, so we get to add that to the show. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, in this corner, fighting out of Melbourne, Australia, the one, the only, the Elusive Curve man, Billy Zig.
Hey there, Jeffrey. It's good to catch up with you. You know what? That was a brilliant introduction. And you're right. Everyone gets into this to debunk it. And if you don't...
I did.
Yeah, good. You got to. Because if the first thing, if someone tells you the earth's flat and someone says, oh, yes, of course it is, you just like walk away from that person. Like, if they haven't researched it and they're going to go straight into it. But having said that, I've had people that, like, it took me 7 months to break through all of that indoctrination, as you say. And it took me 7 months rigorous research, as just read, and it was, I love the way you did that. That was freaking brilliant.
I have my moments, Billy. They're few and far between, but I have them.
You have more than your moments, sir. You have more than your moments. And, you know, what you're doing and the way you're breaking people's thought process, just allowing them to think different, you know. Sorry, it's 3 a.m. here. Let me just get my
Billy, I was up till 4 a.m. last night, and here I am. So it's interesting. I'm with you.
Good. And what time is it for you now? It's lunchtime.
It is 12:06 p.m., just afternoon.
Right.
I appreciate you doing this. I didn't realize that. We could have done it at a more convenient time.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm a bit of a night owl anyway, and you do that being in IT. But I'm going back to debunking flat Earth. The first thing I thought was, this is ridiculous. It took me 7 months to finally accept it. But the strange thing is, you know, you see videos within the first couple of weeks of researching flat Earth, those high altitude balloons, and it's flat as anything. And Neil deGrasse Tyson says that stuff is flat. And you still, you still resist the truth, you know. So it was a big moment, you know. My hair stood on end, or it was just like, you know, you tear up, you know, when you finally I did anyway, when I finally discovered what this was about. And maybe because I resisted so much, it meant a lot more to me as well. And I was a big heliocentric believer, you know, all my life. I knew the model, so I resisted it probably even more. You know, how could the Greeks be wrong was one of my biggest things, you know. But now I know how wrong they were about a lot of things, you know, in particular, even if you look at history, like, you know, you've looked into Tartaria, and that's a very interesting topic in itself, isn't it?
It is. And by the way, Dave from DITRH is in the chat room, and he was instrumental in helping me make the transition too. So nice to see Dave.
Dave was, you know, like, if anyone hasn't seen Dave's videos as part of the process, they've missed out, because you've got to see those short videos he puts out. I love both short videos and the longer, you know, interviews, etc.
Billy, let me say something before we go, just on that note. You know, Dave's name is David Weiss, and there's unfortunately in our I call it the conspiratorium. I think I stole that from Steve Olson, but in our genre, in our community, a lot of times we want to say that everybody that is of a certain religious persuasion that starts with a J and ends with an H is a bad person. They're part of the cabal. They wrote the protocols. They're trying to get rid of us. And we just have to understand that not every person that is a Jewish person is a bad person. They're not all part of the cabal. Don't be stupid. Understand, open your mind. And I mean, Dave is I guess it would be, I don't know if he's a religious person or not, but he is, Jewish by birth, and he's one of the great truthers on the planet. So don't allow your mind to be poisoned by that poison. And I just wanted to put that out there. And please go ahead.
Absolutely, Jeff. Because I'm in Melbourne, by the way. I noticed that Dave was asking where I'm at. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, the lockdown capital of the world. They're calling us. Yeah, it was once the most livable city in the world. Now it's the lockdown capital of the world. And we don't have Stockholm syndrome anymore. We have Melbourne syndrome, because, you know, the Melbournes love being freaking locked down. It's like, and they're praising and clapping when their premier gives them a little bit of, you know, a bit of freedom. You know, you can now go out after 9 p.m. and everyone's like, oh, thank you so much. And
I wonder if Joe Biden is Australian. He wants to shut it all down again over here, Billy.
It's ridiculous, you know. That's another topic. But it's an interesting that you brought up about Dave and being Jewish background. And I remember when I first got into flat Earth, the reason why I hated it, because I started, you know, I'm Greek Orthodox background, you know, went to church all my life, Sunday, you know, we very close with the priests, so we were there every week pretty much. And when I first got into flat Earth, I noticed that everyone's like, in the comments would be, oh, this proves Jesus. This is a Christian thing. Praise Jesus. And I'm like, and I resisted that, because I was getting, I've done my research into that. I did that in 2008, you know, I think the first thing I saw was Zeitgeist, and whether that's accurate or not, it made me think about, you know, the sun in a different way. And did they worship the sun? Did they want to put it in the center of things? And I always, even though I, you know, didn't even consider the concept of flat Earth, but one of the reasons I resisted was because of, this is a Christian thing. And then and to be honest, that's one of the what inspired me to write my book, because I wanted to write a book that, because after I did further research, I wanted to write a book that showed that every culture, religion, you know, dynasty, they all, civilization, I should say, they all believed the earth was flat. They all said it. It was in the Kabbalah. It was in the, you know, the Mayans said it. Everyone said it, because it's sort of obvious. Why would they think otherwise. And the fact that they all said that there was a dome, they all said they all had a lot of symmetry behind them, and that was amazing. That was an incredible journey in itself. And if anyone uses religion to divide this topic, is it's not good. Sure, if it inspires someone to look into it, and all the books are pretty much saying the same thing from what I'm well, there are variables, of course, but when it comes to being one creator, they all sort of lead back to that. Anyway.
Sure. And on that note, let me just add, because I was on a show with Dave and a few other people, and I guess it was a debate, or it was a talk. But one of the people that was on there, I didn't know, was another great flat Earth researcher that's done a lot of work, and he's probably forgotten a lot about people that about some of these subjects than I know, and that's Russian Vids. And we were on that show, and I made some comments about the Christianity, and he got triggered. Admittedly, he got offended. He came at me, and I am who I am. If somebody punches me, I'm gonna punch back, and I went back after him. But I want to give Russian Vids credit. I wrote him and said, hey, look, I know that we've had our differences, but I respect the way that you've studied. Let's see if we can put our differences aside and join together on this subject. And he wrote me back, said, yeah, I apologize. I got triggered. We're both the same. We get mad, but we feel better quickly. And Dave helped facilitate that a bit too. So, salute to Russian Vids for being man enough to say, hey, I'm sorry. And and I did too. So in the flat earth genre, we can't afford to circle up and shoot ourselves. And Absolutely. I don't agree with RV on a lot of stuff. He doesn't agree with me on a lot of stuff, but we both agree that we've been lied to about the shape of the world we live on, and we need to encourage people to study into it more and more.
Exactly. And the division isn't good. And Russian Vids is amazing. And, he was one of the ones that helped, like Dave, like Jerinism, Globusters, and, I wish I could name them all. But these are the guys that, whether you agree with everything, hey, we can't divide. We can't be divided. And I saw that bit of banter, and it's good. That is good and bad. Like, the good thing is that at the end of it, we align back together, because we realize, is it really, what are we arguing about? Can we prove? Look, the only thing on this earth that I can prove right now is probably the shape of the earth. Not that I know the full dimensions and how everything works, but I know it's not a spinning ball. Now, can I go, let's go to 9/11. Although I've been into 9/11 conspiracy since 2003, so I've pretty much seen it all.
And it fascinates me to hear people that aren't American talk about 9/11, because I think you have you're outside of the echo chamber, and it's always fascinating. I think we get good information. So please continue.
I was hook, line, and sinker in 9/11 because the night before I was living in Adelaide. I was flying to Sydney. So my wife was ironing my business shirts, and I had a flight at 6 o'clock in the morning. So she called me. She was just like, Bill, come and look at this. So I'm watching the towers being hit. The first one got hit, then 10 minutes later, or whatever it was, the second one. I was hook, line, and sinker. I thought, I had 3 kids sleeping in their rooms. I was ready to go to war from Australia. But then one day, and I've probably said this before, I thought, F it. I'm just going to put 9/11 hoax after it, because I'd seen everything that the mainstream put out, and I couldn't believe that people were actually, I didn't put hoax because I didn't even know if I knew the word back then, but I put fake, 9/11 fake, because I'd already dabbled into conspiracy theories, and I was just blown away by what I saw. And that opens up your whole but yeah, I had to fly that next morning at 6 o'clock. As I said, everyone was shitting themselves on the plane, as you imagine. Yeah, excuse me for some of the
no worry, I understand.
And yeah, that opens up a whole look, there are people that still can't get over that. That's huge,
because it shakes your whole paradigm. And talking about this subject that we're talking about, the shape of the earth, I remember I was the exact same way. This is the dumbest thing. It's just completely ridiculous. And then I started seeing smart people that believed in it. So I said, you know what, let me at least study it. So I started studying it. And the first thing that to fall, and it's interesting because I got a chance to do some comedy with Eddie Bravo and Sam Tripoli, and Eddie and I are in the green room for a couple hours talking about this. But Eddie says that he always asks one question when the subject of the shape of the earth comes up. He asks people, do you believe that we went to the moon? Do you believe NASA is real? And if they say no, he'll start talking about, MMA, because there's no getting to a person that still believes that we went to the moon, in his opinion. And for me, that was the first thing to fall. I'm like, we did not go to the moon. It's a lie. And then the next thing, just through study, was there's no way that the heliocentric model is correct. It cannot possibly be correct. So now I got to the place where I believe in a geocentric world with Earth at the center. And I was studying the Greeks, like you say. And if you go back to Aristotle, and I believe Socrates as well, they said that we should not subject our powers of observation to the minds of education, but our what we believe should be shaped by our powers of observation. So I started observing, bought a PX1000, started observing, and as far as I can tell, this thing is flat. One thing I know for sure, it is not what they tell us, and my powers of observation tell me it's flat. So here I am.
That is brilliant. And the reason, going back to the reason I sent you my book, it was probably a show I was watching, one of your shows in October last year, and you might have said something, or it was some thought that you allowed yourself, and I thought, man, this guy is ready to read my book. So I thought, bang, send me my book. And then about a week or two later, I was watching the show again, and you're like, Billy Z, that is an amazing book. And I'm like, oh man, you blew my mind. And I think you said that you bought a P1000 because of my book. And you were showing the P1000 online. And that was, on the live stream. And have you tested the P1000? How often have you?
Yeah, I haven't done as much as I want to do on it, but just the fact that shows my seriousness, because if people know, a P1000 is not cheap. Yeah, it's an expensive piece of technology. And when you get ready to spend those kinds of dollars, you're serious on it. And I haven't done as much as I need to, Bill. And I've got a great telescope. I haven't done as much as I need to either, but I'm going to be doing more of that.
Good on you. Good on you. And it was cool because there was a scene in my book where, the character Max, he, grabs his girlfriend, or, and he goes to the city with the intent to buy a P. And as I'm writing that, I thought, I wonder if anyone will do that. So when you actually did, it just blew me away. It was like,
and it probably was because of the book. And let me ask you this before I forget, because I wanted to ask you this. My first book was a novel, Apostle Paul Antichrist, and it was written to show that Paul, in the words of Thomas Jefferson, was the first great usurper of the doctrines of Jesus and of the Bible. And I was going to write it as a straight, scholarly work. And my son says, you know what? Why don't you write that as a novel? And I thought, that's an interesting idea. Give me a broader audience. In retrospect, Billy, I don't think I would have done it that way, because it allowed my critics to say, it's just a story. And some of them didn't take the data seriously. You wrote Elusive Curve as a novel. If you could do it again, would you do it again?
I am doing it again, and I wrote the book because it was the narrator was positioned to have the information. If you read the book, so you've read the book. So for people that read the book, they'll see that there are characters, and the narrator is the one that has most of the information, feeding it in between to the characters, even though Max, who is a flat earther, is trying to convince his other friends,
right,
not convince them, but just showing them what he knows. And then, his girlfriend is away at the time. She's overseas. She thought he was crazy, probably one of the reasons why she left, in the first place. But she starts researching over there, and, everyone comes together. And, the book, although I did want to write, a more structured, non-fiction book, I'm glad I did, because, I wanted to, as I wrote, people started saying, hey, this could be a movie one day, whether it's in my lifetime. I don't really care whether it happens or not, but just to give people the ideas in just a different way. But I'm writing, and, I've got about 3 or 4 books on the go, which is not a good idea. Don't really do that because you're jumping all over the place.
Right.
But yeah,
I've also thought about Apostle Paul Antichrist being a movie, because it could be, and it could be a great movie.
I'd love to read it. Could you send me a link after the show?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
And
funny because, people say, hey, I've written 14 books. Where do I get your books? And I'm like, I don't know if I want you to read them or not, because I wrote them years ago and now I have new understandings. And it's funny. A book is hard to edit once it's out there. You can't, it's already, it's the genie's out of the bottle.
absolutely agree. Yeah, I'm trying to, you read it and, should I have put the apostrophe there or a comma there and, all of that. But you got to put that aside. But, you should put it out. Like, your works are important. And maybe you should do a follow-up book to say, well, this is what I, where I ended up. And,
Oh, that's a great idea.
because right now you're at your peak, right? When
That's a great idea. That's been suggested to me before. But Billy, I think it's how to, and this, I think this is the hardest part. I think there's a lot of people out there that they know something's wrong with the globe Earth model, but they're just not willing, and maybe for good reason, to face the onslaught that you get when you start talking about being flat earth. And with people like us that have channels, it's the last thing you want to say, because you're going to lose subscribers, people are going to be upset. How do people get over that hurdle of willing to lay down reputation, willing to lay down friends, how do you get to that place where you're willing to put truth first above all else?
And that's a very good question. Because being a family man, I told you I had 3 kids. That was 20 years ago when they were little. They're older now. My youngest one is 20, all 3 boys, 20, 24, and 27. So I had to think, well, how's it going to affect them in the workplace? Yeah, they're going for a job and they look up the name as, what? Your dad's a flat earther. Well, how does that work?
Wow.
So there's so many implications. You'll hear stories that pilots have been suspended for being flat earthers. You'll hear, will a professor ever come out from a credible university and say, hey, I'm researching flat earth with an open mind? I don't think it's going to happen. It'll happen, but we've got to drive that. We've got to show them we need to be the ones that step up, and it's how we do it. I watch a lot of those, and I've been in recently. Look, do you know MC Toon, Michael Toon?
I do not.
He's an anti-flat earther, so full-on globe earther. And I went on his show. I've recently been invited to go on again. And because my publicist said, don't do it, because, you don't want to be talking with them. I went, okay. Because I didn't go on, I started getting email. Oh, you're a chicken. It's like, oh, just back off. Because there are people that just are so close-minded, and they're the ones that are locked in. So you're really, that you're showing me your honesty when you look at topics like this, because you're right. People can construe it that you've lost your freaking mind because they resist it so much. But guys like MC Toon and all these, Fight the Flat Earth, and they've got subscribers, and this last thing they want to do is admit that there's a problem in the heliocentric model, even one problem, because it starts, spiraling, pardon the pun, downwards, doesn't it? To a flat earth. And the last thing they want to do is lose their subscribers and lose their, monetary value they're getting out of their channels. And
absolutely. And here, this just popped up, and I know this gets asked a lot. And what's your response to this? Timothy wants to know, how do you argue with someone on the flat earth about the math, the 8 inches per mile squared? Is there another equation out there somewhere? And do we really need another equation? That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, well, it is a really good question. And if there is another equation, well, show me it, and we'll test it based on that equation. Because what is the variable? They're saying, oh, over 100 miles doesn't work. So hang on a sec. You said at 3.2 miles, we could see curvature. Now you want me to go 100 miles? What do you want me to do? How far do you want me to go? So the biggest proof of all is water is flat and level. So if you put water in a glass, and, there was a scene in my book where, Max goes to the pub and he meets the captain. And a lot of these people in the book are real people, but I twisted them, because I know a captain of the sea who runs, one of the biggest harbour cruise companies in Sydney. And I called him one day and said, do you reckon the water is flat in the harbour? And he's like, yeah, it is. And I said, well, do you reckon and I let him into that, do you think, but how he is now a flat earther, right? So you got captains of the sea, pilots, all these people that I did bring up in the book. But if you bring up water in itself, or go to that, so I'm not jumping all over the place. Water in a glass is level. Water in a sink is level at rest. Water in a bathtub, level at rest. Water in a swimming pool, extrapolate that further to a lake or whatever you want to do. But 70% of the earth is covered by water, they tell us. Where does it curve? And where does it, yeah. And has anyone ever measured that? So
that was one of the big things for me, Billy. I started thinking, this earth is, 75% water, they tell us. And I know that water is flat. So if 75% of this earth is water, Socratic logic, water is flat, then the earth is at least 75% flat. And you got to start thinking, and it's just like, how many different observations do there have to be where, the ship sailed over the edge of the earth. Oh, but if I zoom in on it, there it is. I zoom in on it, there it is. How many times does that have to be done before people realize these equations are wrong? And if the equations are wrong, then the premise that the equations come from just might be equally wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, the only rebuttal people have to deny it, what they can see right in front of their eyes, is words like refraction. And I have never met
it's a mirage.
Yeah, I've never met a refraction expert in the world, or a mirage expert. And then they'll go to gravity. I've never met a gravity. All of a sudden, everyone's an expert. And look, it's good that we're learning things, because even that MC Toon, that Michael Toon guy on his show, we had a coffee chat discussion. And I said, Michael, have you learnt from flat earthers? Have you learnt anything? He said, oh, yeah, I have, Eratosthenes. And he didn't know about all that, just like I didn't. They didn't teach us that at school. They didn't take us, for a class excursion to the beach to measure the curve, which if I was a science teacher or a geography teacher or any one of them, was the first thing you do. And they'd do it and repeat it, and it'd be done all around the world. And that would be a big thing.
But they won't do that. They won't do that. And it's as somebody said in the chat, ask and reserve. It's just a lie so big that people can't imagine the enormity of such a lie. But it's funny, in our genre, that's what we do. But I've seen two arguments that no matter how hardcore a truther is, they will not ask, they will not approach the shape of the earth, and they will not subject the Bible to the same type of investigatory inquiry that they'll subject everything else to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been doing this for 6 years now, questioning the shape of the earth. I think October 2014 I started, and it took me maybe a year to start, or after. I was really telling people, just asking them questions all along the way. But my parents, might remember when I told my mum, she was like, "Are you friggin' lost your mind?" I
hadn't even told my mom, Billy. I don't want to have that discussion.
I have all the way through. I've read a book, so I've sort of, been, just talking. Look, it was talking to a lot of people that enabled me to write that book. I'm a moderator of a lot of large groups, and it was all the argument and debate I would have with people that became the book. It became part of it. Anyway, going back with my mum, and I would, just yesterday actually, I brought up that how does, is water level in a glass? And she said, yeah. And I did that scene, all the way to the ocean. And I got her, because you know what she said? She goes, when I came from Greece to Australia, there's no way I went, under the ball. There's no way which way am I going? There's no way that she went under with the ship. 3 months it took them back then. She said 3 months, she would have felt it. Sure, they say on a plane or whatever, it's fast, you won't. But 3 months, like, come on. And when she thought about that, I've got her. She's pretty much a flat earther, but won't admit it.
Yeah. I had a friend that I used to do a show with, and we got on the NASA thing, and then somehow that this is what I'm still thinking, and I'm like, I said to him, I said, this is a globe. If this is real, then there's some people on this globe that are standing upside down. He's like, no, there's not. I'm like, if you're away from this globe looking at it, there's people that are upside down.
Absolutely.
But you're willing to believe in the magic that people can stick to it and water can stick to it upside down, but you're not even willing to entertain The idea, and another thing that hit me, Billy, was you talk about a glass of water. If I'm driving in Cynthia's truck and I'm holding this, and as long as we're going at a steady speed, things are pretty good. But if Cynthia happens to speed up, it'll spill. If she happens to slow down, it'll spill. And they try to tell us, and this was probably my moment that I said, this is wrong. I think I was watching Owen Benjamin on Dave's channel, and he said something, and I went and researched, and NASA admitted that when the Earth goes around the sun, it speeds up and slows down. A planet that's 75% water speeding up and slowing down, it would kill all of us.
Absolutely, yeah. It's called perihelion and aphelion. So
I'm a Bible college graduate, not a linguist. I can't even say that.
Yeah, not perihelion, which they literally, helion is the word like heliocentric, Greek for sun. And peri means closest to the sun. Aphelion means furthest from the sun.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah, so it goes through, you're right, because, and the change of speed is millions of miles an hour. Yeah, so it's huge. Or not millions, actually. I shouldn't say that. I should have said when we go from perihelion to aphelion, the distance of the sun changes from millions of miles. So they give us the average that the distance of the sun is 93 million miles away, or 140 million kilometers. But when during that process, we're not going through at the same speed around the sun. Yeah, as you said, we're speeding up, slowing down, and you'd feel that. You would have a reaction to the water, to the fluid dynamics of to so many things, but we don't feel anything. You don't feel being upside down. You don't feel the spin. You don't feel the orbit around the sun. You don't feel, the sun traversing through the universe at 500,000 miles an hour. It's just ridiculous.
And what does Occam's razor state, Billy?
He stated the simplest explanation is most often the truth. Yeah,
especially the one that you can observe.
Exactly. And that's,
Billy Zig, after you answered this, is the sun really 93 million miles away?
No one's ever proven it. And over time, there was so much discrepancy and disagreements. I think Newton or Copernicus, 3 a.m. in the morning or 3:30 now, but they still said 3 million, then 30 million, then 30 million, and 90 million, and it got debated. It's still, no one's proven it. The only one that you can rely on is NASA, because they reckon they're sending a sun to touch and land on a probe to land on the sun. That's ridiculous. Do they just want to?
Why does the sun behave like it's local if it's 93 million miles away?
Probing the sun is not a really good idea. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't think so. But Billy, don't worry. They'll do it at night. Why does the sun act like it's local if it's really 93 million miles away?
That's exactly right. And it is local, and you can tell by, I think it was Jericho that really put this idea into my mind, that you can tell it's local because even in the morning, it's not warm. And when it, gets closer to you when it's at zenith, that's the hottest part of the day. As it moves away, it cools down, and you feel that effect during winter and summer. Yeah.
And it's funny, Billy, because I started thinking that in the weirdest way, trying to set up this new studio, and you got the spotlights, you're trying to get them right. And I started thinking, if I had a great big huge light, it would light everything up. But the reality is that the sun, if it really was 93 million miles away, you wouldn't see these like spotlight type of hot spots on the earth. So, I mean, they're lying to us.
Absolutely. They're called, and especially the way the sun shines through the clouds, called crepuscular rays. And you can literally see the sun is, I'm not saying it's right above the cloud, but it's not 93 million miles away. And on a really beautiful day.
When I was in high school, I had a real problem with corpusculars, but I grew out of it.
And then there's anti-crepuscular rays. So that's when they'll shine not downwards, they'll shine upwards, and you'll see that effect. And sometimes it happens, you'll see both, and that's a beautiful thing to see. And when you become a flat earther, you start seeing the world in a different way. Like one of my friends turned, I think it was 50, or, so it wasn't 50, but close to that. She said, I've been around the sun 48 times, or whatever it was. Sorry, I'm losing the exact number. And I thought, we've all thought that. Oh, yeah, I've traveled around the sun, as describing our age, that you went around the sun 50 times, spinning 365. Yeah, think about that. Or did the sun pass you every day of your life? Yeah. So if for my age, 50 times 365, the sun passed me about 18,000 times a day. And I brought that up with my mum yesterday. I brought up, when you see the sun, do you think you're spinning away from the sun, or is the sun passing by you? And it was another ka-ching, just I could see her, I could not see, because I haven't seen my mum for a couple of months because of lockdown.
Right.
And that's nothing. I've heard, the stories, even David Weiss, he couldn't see his mum all year, and this is just bullshit, to be honest. Yeah.
Have you seen Dave's experiment that he did with the light moving away, and it gives you the same exact view as a setting sun?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I follow Dave been following Dave for many years. I've sent him, I think he's read my book. I've sent him my book. All the big guys have sent my book. But yeah, absolutely. And you can see that. I live 700 meters away from the beach, which is about 1,000 feet or 1,200 feet. No, what is it? 2,100 feet it is. So to every meter, there are 3 feet, if anyone wants to know that. So about 2,100 feet. And I'll go there nearly every day, take some great footage. And what you see is that there's no way that the Greeks 2,500 years ago could have seen a boat going over the curve and realize how the freaking hell did they do that? How old was Aristotle anyway when he did that? My eyes at 50, there's no way I can do that. Was he like 20 years old, like really young? And does that mean I now have to believe a 20-year-old that drove, this to where it is now? Like because the telescope wasn't invented till 2,000 years later by a guy named Hans Lippershey. Yeah. So How the heck did they know all this stuff? Yeah. There's an impossible. The more you research, the more you try and prove the globe, you become a flat earther. That's how it should be. You shouldn't go out and prove flat earth. No, learn by debunking flat earth. That's the best way to do it. Yeah, because you should educate yourself on both models, and that's the most important thing.
One of the things that we had, Dave was on the show the other day, and they trick us by getting things so embedded into our brain that even when we come out of the trickery, we still say them. I remember I said something like, we've only believed the earth was round for 500 years. They've only been teaching it was round for 500 years. And yet Dave has actually had interviews with people that are, still alive. So they're a lot less than 500 years old, octogenarians, centenarians that have said, no, when I was in school, they taught us that the earth was flat.
I wasn't even taught that, which is really, maybe I skipped that day when they told me about flat, they even joked about flat earth at school, but it wasn't something I ever considered in my life. Always thought that the earth was a spinning ball. And I loved it. Me too. I loved it. I love the fact that, I never got into Star Trek and all that, so all that didn't really interest me, but just the complexity behind it all, and the fact that you can't feel it, the fact that your mind can be tricked, right? That I'm in Australia, but I'm upside down, but I don't know it because of gravity, because everything, pulls to the center of the earth, and, up is up for everyone, doesn't matter where you are. All of that is the trickery. And, we love NASA, funny that you brought up the moon landing, and when, interesting that you brought up the moon landings and questioning that. And I did that back in 1998. So I've known for a long time that NASA lied to me about the shape, about the moon, but I defended them so much when it came to them about the shape of the earth. And that's like saying, like having a girlfriend or a boyfriend who has cheated on 50 women, and you know it, but he won't do it again. You know what I mean? That's just ridiculous. Oh, trust me now. That was 40 years ago. He won't never do it again. That's just, or a guy.
And you know what happens, Billy Zig?
Yeah,
Britney
exactly.
Spears was right. Sooner or later, oops, I did it again.
Well, they've been doing it all the way through. And when you realize, and when you have that realization that they did that to trick you about the shape of the earth, that's a big moment in your life. Like, what else did they lie about? That's why now I consider everything, things you talk about with the Bible. I may not agree. I love what you talk, I'd say 90% of I do, because when I look around, and now, when I look at, they talk about that the Son of God walks on water. We'll go to the beach when the sun is setting.
Oh, that's a great point.
See that ray is walking right to you, and he's walking right to you. If someone's 5 kilometers that way, it'll walk up right to them. Their visual perspective will, you could argue, no, the sun, that line is coming directly to me. They could say, it is not, it's coming directly to me. Try and prove which one it is. Can you? No, you can't, because it's going to you both individually. And that's a trip in itself.
That's a profound statement. It really is.
It is. This world is freaking, the more you research and you allow yourself to think. I think it was my mum, Mum's taught me a lot, because she taught me because they're really Christians. So, I debate this with them as well. And, but she said, I think in the Bible somewhere it says, oh, don't question everything. You should trust in, and then somewhere else it says, you should think. So which one is it, Ma? Tell me, yeah? Like, is this book verbatim? Should we believe everyone? Because it's telling me to question things, especially when I started questioning other religions and looking at how every one of them is beautiful in their own way. And never say that to a really devout Christian, because they're like, no, you can't look at that. You've got, it's like it's blasphemy. What they sort of tell you it is.
Right. A thought just hit me though, Billy. If the water's flat, it would be a whole lot easier for Jesus to walk on it. Then if they go up that hill, down, it's flat, it's easy for him.
Beautiful. And that's one that I love bringing up with Christians that really defend this. And especially when you think about, there's an up and down in life, right? Up and down. And that we've always been taught God is up, there's a devil down. Where is up and down? Where is God on a spinning ball? Yeah.
Ooh.
What down is that? Is it up that way? Up that way? There's only one up. It doesn't say up is everywhere. There's no description of where is. So, but if you look at it on a level plane, well, there's up. There's only there, and literally, I think there's a guy. Do you know Santos Bonacci?
I do.
Yep. I've been following him for maybe 10, 12 years, and I remember he resisted flat Earth as well. And I remember the day when he broke through, and I was not a flat earther, and I'm literally, what? This guy's insane. Not another one that's becoming a flat. Not another one of the the people who I've followed for years is becoming a flat earther. But an interesting thing he said, if you point around you or like that, do a 360, you're literally pointing to everyone on this earth. Yeah, and that's profound if you think about that. But on a ball, you're pointing out in space, aren't you? But look around you, and that's why we have that comment. Look
and it
around.
Separates us, doesn't it? If we had that thought, it makes us feel very separate. Excuse me, very separate.
Oh, no worries. And I was going to say, I love the background, the flags, by the way, the rebel in particular.
Say that again.
I love the flags you've got on your wall in the background, by the way, the rebel flag in particular.
Those will go away, but Billy, I just got to the point where, they're burning down our cities. They're trying to tell us we're all horrible, evil, rotten people. America was started by bad guys. The guys in the South are even worse. And I just got to the point, they can fly their flags and they can run their statements. But man, you know what? I am proud of the American patriots. And I'm proud of the Southern patriots. I'm a Southerner. And people don't know this, but the people that believe in that flag are the same people that believed in that flag. The rebel flag was designed by people that thought that we had gotten too far away from this one. So it's become this, it's the same, all of this nonsense. Oh, if you see that flag, it means racism. No, it does not. So I just said, I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. I'm not going to allow my culture to be sublimated anymore. And it's also a signal of, hey, listen, you have pissed us off. And when you piss off the silent majority and they're locked and loaded, it's probably not a good idea.
Exactly. And the funny thing with the rebel flag that we call it here, so you call it the Southern Sorry, give me the.
It's actually the Confederate battle flag of Northern Virginia, but it has morphed to be the accepted emblem of the Confederate States of America. So it's the rebel flag. You're right. It's the flag of the United or of the states of the Confederacy.
That's very interesting because when I was, about 14, I was, we're in a gang.
Confederate States of America. That's what escaped me.
Yeah, right. When I was about 14, we're in a gang. I was a bit of a rebel, but we used to have that flag on our jean jackets and leather jackets, and you say "Rockabilly Rebels." But I've always been rebellious,
But see, that's a great point. This flag is for people that are sick and tired of being oppressed.
I was always sick of it,
And that makes me so proud, Billy, that you are over there in Australia, realizing that things are going wrong. You're rebelling against the system, and you chose to use our flag of my heritage.
Yeah, well, that was when that was 35 years ago. That's the thing about it. And, that's what really gets me at the moment, that we are oppressed. Like, look at Melbourne. We've been in lockdown. I don't know if you know, for 3 months, man, in a stage 4 lockdown, right? That means you can't go past 5 kilometers past your house outside of the range, 5 kilometers. You couldn't leave your home from 8 p.m. at night till 5 p.m. in the morning. They only changed it last week because a boy died. He got lost in the woods and the local community couldn't even search for him at night.
Oh.
Like, literally, this is what it's getting to, mate, right? One person a day could leave. You can only leave for 1 hour a day for exercise. Like, does this sound like freedom? And I'm talking about, I was a rebel from 14, 15. If my mum said, you can't go to the park, I would go to the park.
Right.
My mum said, you know what I mean? Like, so don't tell me what to do, right? Especially when it comes to freedom, especially when I hear people are losing their life. And more people have lost their lives, I reckon, in Melbourne, not because of COVID, because of suicides, violence, domestic violence, children getting abused because now they can't report it. Normally they'd report that at schools. And I've been saying that for ages. And guess what? Tonight on the news, on the mainstream news, they actually said that 12-year-olds are being admitted to hospital for mental health issues. They're being put on antidepressants at 12 years old. There was a child that committed suicide the other day. I didn't even think of that when I was a child. I used to play, like, seriously? This is ridiculous. But, you've got these hardcore people, and the problem is that if you guys get Biden, man, we're effed here in Australia too.
Listen to that, please, Americans. This is a man in Australia. Would you please say that again, Billy?
You guys, if Biden gets in America, we are. Can I say? No,
you can.
We're fucked. We are fucked, mate. And we know that all along, not just with Biden. We know if America falls, man, Australia falls too. We've known that. I've known that all my life, right? So if anyone tries to make up that that's a new type of right-wing paradigm, like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, our freedom is on the line. I heard part of what Biden said, and he wants to knock down buildings and build these mega cities. And what are you doing, mate? He's got this futuristic vision, 2030 agenda in his mind, because that's what they always programmed us with the Jetsons and all that crappy, those cities that they want that are all automated and pretty much smart cities. Have you heard of the smart cities they want to do? Yeah. And they're ready to do that. And what they're doing to you guys in America, like with the bushfires, to set new super trains and all, fast trains or whatever, they're doing it here too. If you look at the actual pathway where all our bushfires occurred only 9 months ago, our government was fighting bushfires. Now they're actually making plans on this new railway that's going up all of a sudden, so they've already made plans. If you look at
what a coincidence, Billy.
Just a coincidence, isn't it?
It is.
And yeah, and people talk about, like, I just don't know.
I mean, the debate last night was an interesting debate, but I mean, just the one thing that people here, they don't like Donald Trump's personality. He's too this, he's too that. But never before have we had a man in the presidential office. He stood, Biden's like, it's a global warming. You're burning down the California's on fire, man, the thing. And Trump says, listen, that's the California is not on fire because of global warming. California is on fire because they got 6 feet of crap on the ground and they refuse to clean it out. And every year I get a call, California's on fire. And Donald Trump wanted to say, guess what, Gavin, clean up your damn forest or I'm not taking your calls anymore. It's just common sense. It can't be said anymore. The fires are not from global warming. They're because California won't manage their forests.
Absolutely.
And they want your land to build their speed rail so they can make sure that when you only go 5 kilometers away, if you're going more than 5 kilometers away, we're going to put you in a government train and we're going to have 5G all the way so we'll know exactly where you are all the time.
Is it another strange coincidence that that's the main reason that our fires, went wild, because they didn't allow the cleaning up, as you just said. So there was a lot of preparation to, they denied them access to equipment for years. They denied them grants that the independent country fire departments were asking for grant. We want to update our equipment. No, there's not enough money for that, but they've got money for everything else, as we know.
And like Tracy Dyer says, there's not enough money to clean up the forests, but we'll send you billions of dollars in federal aid when you burn up year after year after year, because we don't spend it's like, I don't want to spend $5 for X, but I have to spend $500 for Y because I didn't take care of X earlier.
It's just unbelievable. And so, these guys are either really incompetent, which we know no group of people, they can't be that incompetent, or it's planned. And if you look at, Agenda 21, which was all prepared for from 1992. So we've had 30 years to prepare for this. So what's happening? Like, to tell people, we've all been trying. Everyone's been, hey, the world's gonna, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. And right at 2021, when their plan was to come to fruition, look what we're going through. They're ramping everything up right now. And if people can't see that, well, that's going to be our demise.
So, Billy, with all this world upheaval that's going on, why in the world are we, in the midst of all of this stuff going on, why are we even bothering to talk about the shape of the earth? Why does the shape of the earth even matter, Billy Zig?
You know what? That's a really good question. And I've been doing this for 6 years. So if we had a collective realization over the last 3 or 4 years that everyone, hey, and they didn't resist so much when they heard about flat earth. Okay, well, let's test it. We've never done it before. Let's test the curve, right? Let's test this model that we've been presented. And if we did that with an open mind and people realized the deception, gee, it would have changed the world, because then we would have by now gone, hang on, what else did they lie about? And if we could do that collectively, it's going to be huge. But we didn't do that. So what does it matter now? I think it still matters. Which one do we focus on? Because I've been focusing on, a lot of the reality of what's going on at this right now. But for the last, 3-4 months in particular. But I've also been sharing flat earth, because that, if you could see look at water, for example. If you could just convince someone that water is level, they're going to start looking at that, and they're going to start looking at their life in a different way. So that's important to me. That changes everything. Change me. I want to see other people go through that too. But if you could simply see through the deception of the earth, well, you should start. It does trigger thought on what else are they doing. But
that's a great point. Because if we could just look and see the very distinct possibility that every single institution we have has lied to us about the shape of where we are, then we would begin to say, oh, it was like my mother and her husband, great people, super educated people, both of them doctorates. But if it's said on CNN, it might as well have come from the lips of God, him or herself. And they're so smart people. I'm like, why can't you see this? But even those type of people that are that indoctrinated into the system, could you imagine the paradigm shift that would be, whoa, they lied to us about the earth? Well, then maybe Anderson Cooper is full of shit. The possibility arises. But for me, Billy, the big thing is, and I'm sorry to take over, but
please do.
If we are a insignificant speck of organic matter on an insignificant rock hurtling around a rather insignificant star that is hurtling through the rest of the galaxy, which is, kind of a little, your galaxy's okay. It's nothing great. It's okay. And then it's hurtling through this big, big universe, and our universe is probably hurtling around something else. You feel rather small. You feel rather insignificant. But if you are on a beautiful planet that is remarkable in almost all respects from anything that we've seen out there before, even what they tell us, if everything revolves around you, then that changes your perspective quite a bit, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And they wanted it to be, it was all about sun worshipping. It was all about putting the sun at the center of creation, where the sun, we revolve around the sun rather than the sun being up here for us personally as a personal daily experience, rather than, as you said, an accident that was, created by a big bang. Two rocks, started this first explosion, then all those rocks kept exploding and smashing in and create another planet, which all these, because I've never had two rocks that I've smashed together that create a sphere. And why do some of these spheres in the sky have rings around them, and why do others not? So the whole thing is just bullshit. And how did they work that out many years ago? But you're right, the realization that it's here for you is a big thing, rather than there could be life on other planets, which everyone thinks is, you're going to be saved by these aliens now.
Go ahead, man. That's beautiful.
I was watching your show yesterday with those two guys, and I was talking about Nibiru. And
that's an old show, by the way. That was done 2 years ago. I just replayed it.
That was cool, because I was smiling listening to that, going, I can't believe I believed all that, because I researched Dr. Zachariah Sitchin. I had all his books. I was writing to Samaria and Nibiru, and 2012. We're going to be, this planet's going to come and create a gravitational pull, and all this. Again, just BS, right? Yeah. Which your mind is now out there. It's not here. It's Beautiful. It's not in this reality. And then they told you to ignore your senses. I get that in a lot of debates. Oh, you can't trust your senses. Are you serious, man? Well,
Billy, if you can't even trust your senses, then how can you trust your intuition that tells you you're divine, sovereign, and free, and you're not born with original sin, and the very best you can hope for is to be a sinner saved by grace, a slave to a church, just like they want you to be a slave to a government. No more, baby.
Exactly. And the thing is that you should be doing is trusting your senses.
Yes.
If you smell smoke, there could be a fire. If you're crossing the road and you hear a car, it could be coming along. Do we ignore all those senses? If you walk up and there's my stove has got a flame burning, do I ignore the heat as I'm getting closer, or do I just go, no, there's some science that'll, like, it's just ridiculous, right? People have really just got to let that go and just research it. If anyone can prove the earth is a spinning ball, I will unpublish this book. All right, that's my challenge. Do it. I'll unpublish it. And it's not as if it makes me money anyway. Like it's wasn't for that, right? I've given away more books that I've sold because I love doing it. It was, So it's never about money. It's about just helping someone, even if one person wakes up through what you do and they go and tell 10, and they go and tell 10, we'll get through this. There's no way they can stop this. That's why they tried to flatten the curve. They literally put it in your face what they were doing.
I've wondered about that a few times. I've started to make a show about that, because that's probably part of their
mockery.
What's it called? Where they say we told them so that they won't have to take the guilt. What's that called? It's
part of their disclosure, isn't it? And releasing their karma that I told you so.
Yep. So it is all about flattening the curve. And it's so great, Billy. I'm so glad that you said that. They've got us to the point where plausible deniability is what I was looking for. They've got us to the point where we can go out and look at the ocean and it's flat. We can go up on top of a mountain and it's flat. the power of cognitive dissonance. I have 1,000 hours of flight in a C-130. I've even ridden in the back of an F-15 inverted, looking down, and it's flat. But still, oh no! If you believe in the flat Earth, you're crazy. If you don't take anything else from this program or from this channel, please take this. Trust yourself. Believe yourself. You've got all you need
That's
to get done what you need to get done.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, because we do have what we need. We appeal to authority. We think, no, those guys are so smart. They know it all. They figured it out. But no, they haven't. And they're afraid to say it, because the smarter you are, the less inclined you are to come out and go, I don't know. And to say I don't know is they're big words. Well, I don't know. I don't know how the earth spin. So what? Go and research it. But don't go out and say, oh, the other people have proved it before me. I don't need to go research it. Just go and think about life, because once you piece it together, and with a lot of your viewers, they've already done, you've set the path for them. Like, this is the final. Once you connect the dots with flat earth, you're just like, everything changes. For some
Billy,
reason,
where did the space shuttles go?
That's a good one, isn't it? Because I always thought they went to space, but I think they're landing in the water somewhere. And David's done some great presentations. Even Jaron did one where he showed the space shuttle on top of the rocket, and the linchpin is like this. It wouldn't even hold a car to it, But this thing's traveling 17,000 miles an hour with this on top of it that weighs 50,000 tons or whatever it is, and that's holding it, really? And then it releases it, and the shuttle goes, like it's going in the water. It's probably going to Bermuda Triangle, which is why they told you, don't go to Bermuda Triangle, you'll fall down and ships disappear. And that's a good trick.
Ooh, God, that's another good one, Billy. You're bringing, and Cynthia in the chat room says, there's a graveyard in the ocean, a aircraft graveyard in the ocean. It's probably got some space shuttles on it.
Yeah, it's a good trick. It's like, to your kids, don't go into that room, there's spiders in there. Like, they'll never go in there.
And by the way, Billy, I'm from Florida, and if you're looking at the geography of the state of Florida, they take off up by it's Cape Canaveral. It's up around Titusville, and the son of a gun, the Bermuda Triangle is just directly south. There, guys.
It's perfect spot, isn't it? Like, look at it.
I've never heard that anywhere before. That's a great thought.
And these are not my original thoughts. I've heard that from other in the flat Earth community. I think it was Dave would have said that, and Jaron, and Bob from Globebusters, and all the other Iru and all of them. But yeah, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? It's a good thing. It's a good trick, isn't it? People say, why would they lie about the shape of the Earth? And I know what you said about the spiritual side of it. That's big, but they've got more motives, and they've always got multiple motives when they do something. They never do it for one reason. And I wrote in my book that if you think about a ball, and it only has so much surface area, right? If you flatten out this ball, it's only got so much surface area. But if the Earth is flat, there's possibility that there's more land out there. And what if there is? And what if that's what they're hiding?
So bye all of this overpopulation. We got to get rid of some people.
Yeah, and our the treasurer in Australia, his name is Josh Frydenberg, and when he got elected or whatever, and guess what he did? The second day guess where he went? What would you do? You just got elected. You're now the treasurer of Australia. Big position, big budget. You got to look after, big responsibility. When the prime minister goes away, you're in charge. Guess where he went? He went to Antarctica the day after he got elected.
That's really strange.
Guess how long it took him? He went there and he came back in one day. Why would you go somewhere, travel 8 hours, 10 hours, stay there for a couple of hours, and come back? I would do that if it was an important business meeting in Australia, but to Antarctica? What were you doing there? Yeah, and
what do you speculate that he was doing?
I really don't know. There's something there, because the Pope went there. You get every big official, they get elected and they go to Antarctica. I can only imagine what's there. I used to get into, I remember hearing about the hollow Earth theory and all of that years ago. That is the Earth's a sphere, and you can go in the middle and there's Agartha in the inside of it, and all those stories. And I think there's more land. I think what Admiral Richard Byrd said when he did his expedition that there was more land on Earth, I think that was pretty accurate. He wouldn't have said it, although maybe he could have been controlled opposition, you know what I mean, leading us down the garden path. But I don't think so. I think there's some truth to that. I think we don't know. Well, if they're lying about the shape of the Earth, everything else is on the table.
And Billy, aliens. Oh, everybody knows that aliens are from out in space, and some of them are bad, so you got to be really afraid of them. But some of them are good, and you can't save yourself. Maybe the aliens will save you. But if the Earth is a great big flat plane, and the aliens, quote unquote, are just from another section we don't know about, then they're not so scary.
Exactly. And if you think about the real meaning the real word for the meaning behind the etymology of the word alien. So alien, L-I-E-N, is someone who owns land, right? So an alien, anything with
beautiful.
a name. Yeah, so if you're a theist, you believe in theology. If you're an atheist, you don't. So you put an A, it's the opposite of it. So alien means that you're
land.
You're not from this land, literally, you're from other land. You don't have the rights to. So it makes more sense to me that, maybe, I used to wonder as a kid, where do Chinese people come from? How come that, maybe they did come from other lands. Maybe they did. Maybe that's, who knows? But I don't believe in the theory of evolution that we evolved like that, over millions and billions of years. That
crazy thought, Billy. And we'll wind up with this because I know it's early for you. Cynthia, my partner in life, soon to be, we're going to be married, and I start thinking, am I destined for this? Is this part of what I'm supposed to do and supposed to be? Because her stepfather, was Admiral Byrd's yeoman.
Wow.
My dad was on the USS Henderson, which was part of Byrd's flotilla that went to Antarctica.
Wow. That is incredible. I think you were. I don't believe in coincidences, man. I think everything's set up to work out eventually. Like when the truth will always, there's a brilliant saying, and I've got it in my book. There are three things you can't hide: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Right? The things will eventually unfold, and weird things happen to make that unfold. Who drives it? I don't know, man. That's the big question. I always think about this concept of there are three things that we won't know: where we came from, because no one can prove where we came from, not even the scientists, no theologian, and even yourself or myself. We don't know what we're doing here. What are we doing here on Earth? Do you know? Like, there's so many explanations for it, and we don't know where we're going. So they're the three. We don't know where we came from. We don't know what we're doing here, and we don't know where we're going. Well, what the heck do we really know if you think of it like that as well? But it's interesting that you said about Admiral Richard Byrd, because I wrote about it in my book, and I'm trying to find how many ships they took. But guess what? And you're going to love this, and you should listen. Like Russian Vids is awesome. You know why? Because he taught me a lot about all this numerology, the 33, and you see the 13, and you see all of that.
Are you going to tell me there was 33 ships in his flotilla?
That's exactly right, my friend.
Wow.
That's what I'm going to find right now. And I wrote it in my book. Gee, I wish I tagged this because it was really interesting that, he went there and there's 33 ships and 1,300 men and, 13 aircraft. Like, it's literally, who knows what they're doing. But they could have added that in to lie about it because they love putting their signature around. It doesn't mean the story's not true. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It just means they twisted the numbers. How did they know there was 1,300 and there wasn't 1,295 men?
Right.
30, yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? But
Billy, tell us again where people can get your information, and leave us with, if you would, a final thought of your life before embracing the idea that the Earth really is flat and stationary and at the center of the universe, and what your life, maybe the biggest thing that it has made a change in your life that is actually real and has made a change in your life.
That's a really freaking good question and hard to answer because I've never, I put thought into it, but never together like that. But the same person as before, but I was more not money focused, but I was, passionate in business and, got to do this. And, you start realizing how short life is when you put it all into perspective. And now I would rather focus, I'd rather not have money and be happy than have a lot of money and not be happy. And it taught me that. It taught me look, I think nature is the most important thing. I love natural science, and it's connected me with animals more. It's connected me with
It's so amazing to listen to you because it's the same. It just sounds like me talking.
Oh, and
that's the same experiences. I used to look at my cat as just a possession, but once I started looking at this, I'm like, this is actually a sentient being that has, a soul, and you don't own that cat. That cat is your friend. He's your partner.
Absolutely. And just even an ant, every creature.
That's
now
true. I won't step on an ant now. If I'm not going to kill myself if I do, but I try to go out of my way to respect all life.
Absolutely. I had a friend that came over with his son, and he's like 10 years old, and he's stomping on the ants, and I'm like, stop it, what are you doing? And he looked at me and said, you're killing them, they're just trying to go from there to there. And he looked at me, and I've changed that kid, because just little things like that, right? And then you see people behaving differently. And look, we're all, imagine, as you said before, that what I went through, you went through. Imagine if 7 billion people went through that, and we all went, wow. And that's the last thing they want to do. The last thing they want is us to collectively go, hey, why are we fighting in war? Why are we fighting with religion? Why, just put that aside. Let's just work out the fundamentals of nature. That's the most important thing. I think God wanted us to see what we're seeing. Otherwise, he would have blinded us by it. He would have put us on a ball that you'd never work out, right? And I don't believe that. I believe if this was built for you to see what you see, yeah? No trickery of, there's a boat, but it's over the curve, but I can see it, but it's still over the curve. And, as we said, the spinning and all the other, ridiculous notion that takes us away from our senses, our true meaning of what we're friggin' doing here, which will never work out. But maybe we are here to try and work it out, but they're stopping us. So imagine, some people say that we live in a simulation. And if that's the case, if it was, which I think is bullshit, because they're just trying to get away from there could be a God. But hey, if it's a simulation, who made the simulation? Well, that person is God. But anyway, if this was just a game, as I think Mark Sargent says, it's a game. Well, if it's a game, I reckon God wouldn't put just a one-level game. He'd put multiple levels, right? So you complete this level just like in a real game that you play on a computer. And if you don't complete this level, you do it again. And if we're always in this first level and can't get a level 2, that's a bloody good way to stooge someone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've done that. They've stopped us from going to level 2 in a way where we would be more enlightened. Like, we're going to go to level 2, and whatever happens, they go, if you're not ready, you're never going to get there anyway. So it's kind of this circular.
And it's funny, Billy, because you mentioned the games, and I remember old school. I wasn't really a gamer, but I know if you went to the Frogger machine or the Pac-Man or whatever, they always had on there at the top of the list who had the best scores.
Yes.
Oh, I want to be that guy. So if they keep us ignorant, then they get to be the guy and the girl that's on the top of the heap. Billy, I really appreciate you being here. Fantastic stuff. It's really helped me refine some of my perspectives. And I mean, just talking to you has made me feel better. You're very encouraging, and I really appreciate your work. The website is elusivecurve.com. His YouTube channel is also linked in the information box. Billy, thanks so much for getting up early. I feel really bad for doing that. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your hard work. And thanks for being a strong part of our growing community.
Oh, Jeff, man, this has been an amazing experience for me, actually, because, yeah, I just love getting out and telling people about what I've learned. Challenge it. Everyone should challenge what they hear. Don't believe everything you hear from. Go and do your own investigation. But I've set up if you don't mind, I don't want to.
No, please do.
I've set up a discount code for anyone that does go on the website, and I've done it as mailman. So if anyone enters the voucher code mailman, they'll get a 25% discount off the book, if that's okay.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Bill. And he's referring to the fact that no matter what, rain, snow, sleet, dark of night, trolls, all of the opposition, I am your mailman. I will continue to keep my appointed rounds. He's Billy Zig, author of The Elusive Curve. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, and you've got mail. Thanks for being here, Billy. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeffrey. God bless. Bye-bye.